Good day everyone, especially to mom. This is my learning experiences 5 that serves as our midterm examination. So the first question is, why theory is important in the application of the study of motor skills includes the motor control and motor learning. So it is because theory guide and explain what we observe, especially when we are studying the application of motor skills includes the motor learning and motor control, as it is provides the relationship between the concept. So theories allows the production of a new motor skills in which it is a way similar how to look an art, and that provides a perspective that combines a collection of disparate data into a single coherent whole. So as it is applied to the human movement, theory allows us to see how many individuals aspects that makes up motor abilities and as we learn the specific elements of a motor skills, a thorough understanding of a theory will put them into a broader and more understandable context. So, as we can also recognize or identify some issues that we can find in a motor performance in which we are having a difficult time learning and performing a certain assessment or task, and theory can help us improve, develop, and increase our way of planning ours or our own strategies that enable us to make a new movement, which is as we develop it through learning of theories, as we plan to how to solve the difficult time performing and learning these motor skills. Theory can help us to go through these hardships. So now we can proceed to the number 2 question, which is explain how far you understand the information processing model. So you can state example or demonstrate it. So in 1948, an English psychologist named Craig recommended that the brain be thought of as a type of computer in which information is received, analyzed, and a result generated, in which this information processing model that since then has continued to influence all cognitive-based theory of a motor control and motor learning, in which in the cognitive psychologists utilize the information processing model as a framework to explain and characterize mental processes. The model also compares the cognitive process to how a computer works, in which the human mind, like a computer, takes information, organizes it, and stores it for a later retrieval. So there are 3 stages identified in this model, which includes the perceptual, the decision-making, and the programming stages. So these 3 codes are the central processes. So yung sinabi ko nga kanina, human minds are compared to how computer works. So in the information processing model, we have yung tinatawag natin na sensory input, in which napabilong ito sa perceptual stage. Dito na belong yung sense of hearing, touch, and sight, in which all information is makikita natin on how makikita natin yung mga information ng mga skills na napaperform ng kalaban natin o yung skills na ginagawa natin. So, also next is the decision making. The decision making is dito is yung information na nakuha natin is magtra-transmit siya or transmitted to decide upon a course of action. How we can do it and when we can do it, that we can determine an appropriate action. So the third one is the output, which it is yung kalalabasan or yung mga consequences of what we've decided to do or the action we've taken in response to that scenario or to the skill performance na ginawa natin. So the lastly is the feedback. So dito na yon mapapaloob yung it is a form of how a performer assessed his or herself or point of view a performer after using a specific skill. So, dito na natin i-assess as a performer na yung ginawa ba natin is success or unsuccessful para sa atin. So, may ano dito is for me, yung aking example dito is yung how to throw a javelin. So, throwing a javelin is, dito yung mechanics ng game na yung throwing a javelin distance. So, meron talagang kalaban dito in which is dapat malamangan mo yung distance ng kalaban mo na yung pagland ng javelin niya is malalamangan mo din yung how to land your javelin so that you can get a high score. So, if kunyari yung kalaban ko yung mauunang magpa-perform ng javelin throw is makikita ko, I have got information na ganito yung technique niya, how to throw a javelin. So, in the decision making, either gagayahin ko ba yung ginawa ng kalaban ko na technique or either mag-stick ako sa technique na yung nasanay na ako sa technique na yun. So, in the output, I try to decide na gawin yung technique ng kalaban ko. So that, not bad naman siguro na gayahin yung technique ng kalaban. So, para ma-perform yung, maalam mo yun sa sarili mo or ma-assess mo na, kaya ko rin palang gawin yung technique ng ibang kalaban ko. So, when I decide na gayahin yung technique ng kalaban ko, I perform it well. My javelin landed well and mas nalamangan ko yung score na nakuha ng kalaban ko. So, if we go beyond in the feedback, yung pagkatapos na ng output na ginawa ko, the response, maybe I got the right pag-throw ng javelin, nalamangan ko siya, but in my deep inside, nahihirapan ako because, oo nga, natapon ko siya, but I don't know kung yung ginawa ko ba na technique is I'm in an appropriate action or tama ba akong positioning or ginawa ko lang yun kasi gusto kong talagang gayahin yun sa kalaban ko so that I will consider siguro myself na unsuccessful pa rin yung ginawa ko because nga I'm not in the appropriate action and I'm not in an appropriate positioning in how to throw a javelin. So, ganun. So, next, we're gonna proceed to number 3. Give one example or skill you can relate or you can explain or demonstrate of a closed-loop system of information processing in the relation to its definition. Assess the relative strength and weaknesses of a closed-loop system to your given example. So, as it is defined, closed-loop systems are thought to be at the heart of control of slow, deliberate actions, in which the control of a closed loop on the basis of input connections are done and does not depend upon detailed movement instruction. So, my example for this is the proper positioning and proper ready position and the handling of on how to throw a javelin. So, in this example, if you is in an appropriate action and positioning in a ready position on throwing the javelin, you will receive a feedback where are you throwing the javelin correctly and somehow defeat your opponent or malalampasan mo yung tapon kung gaano kalayo yung tapon ng opponent mo ay malalampasan mo din yung tapon niya because you are in appropriate actions where is tama yung positioning mo, yung ready position mo, and the release of the javelin. So, somehow, matatalo mo talaga yung opponent mo because through the technique you do, yung tamang technique na ginawa mo. But if you are in a situation of doing such in an appropriate or yung hindi tama na action like handling a javelin, kung paano mahawakan yung javelin, the positioning that you are not comfortable with, and nag-aalangan ka sa ready position sa pagtapon or pag-release ng javelin, na the only thing you have to go is onto your own perception, which is very inappropriate, and be able to detect some error out of it because you are not sure about your control. Hindi mo alam yung if you are in that position, makokontrol mo ba talaga yung pagtapon mo because maybe it will out, maa-out siya. Malayo nga yung pagtapon mo pero out, not in not in an appropriate direction. So, about your control in throwing or releasing that javelin throw is in a proper position. So, so that the strength of this example is that related to closed loop system is that if this skill is a practice that allows for high degree of movement precision, where we can correct the proper way of positioning, handling the javelin to release it so that we can release it properly. But there is weaknesses occur to in which when we try not to correct our positioning at nagpapadalos-dalos lang talaga tayo sa ating ginagawa, which is when we try not to correct our ready position, our handling of javelin, our handling our javelin and the positioning of our body, maybe the release of javelin will not be in a proper place. It will proceed on a trial and error basis that accompanied by many errors that we need a greater planning and a good execution time. So if we are nasa talaga tayo in the weaknesses of closed loop system, we really need a greater planning and execution time para matama natin yung ginagawa natin, because if we're not in that situation na hindi natin itatama, we really need makaka-encounter talaga tayo ng trial and error, which is the weaknesses, of the weaknesses of disadvantage is it's really an attention demanding. So next, we're gonna proceed to number 4. Give one example or skills or a skill you can explain and demonstrate of an open loop system of information processing in relation to its definition. Assess the relative strengths and weaknesses of an open loop system to your given example. So first, I will define the open loop system, in which open loop system is the motor program that helps to contain all the information needed for forming and executing an appropriate response without the further input of sensory feedback to initiate corrective commands. Or in other words, open loop system has no feedback needed, in which ito kasi ay isang type ng continuous control system that the output has no outcome or no effect. So my example for this is kicking a soccer ball to goal it in a goal post of an opponent. So when we are begun to kick quickly the ball to the opponent's goal post, so there is nothing you can do to adjust your level of kicking. It is because the movement is too fast or very rapid siya, which is there is no conscious thought na na-involve. Wala ka ng conscious thought na i-involve sa pagsipa ng bola na yun, because rapid na kasi and too fast, because your movement is too fast na. And na kung saan ang example na ito ay walang feedback na naproproduce, and it can't be a change if something unexpected happens. So the relative strength of this example is that kicking a soccer ball is pre-structured once it is started and carried out without any uncertainty about the necessity for further big movement adjustment. So meron ding itong weaknesses na na-occurred, which is the example is it is ineffective if your soccer knowledge or your soccer, if wala kang alam sa soccer, it is very become insufficient or poorly developed, and that is as your skills is ineffective in changing environment or in circumstances. So yun yung weaknesses ng open loop system. So now we are in the last number, which is number 5. Explain how far you understand movement constraints in dynamical system theory. As much as possible, please give example. You can explain or demonstrate your example. So movement constraints in dynamical system theory is that system are always confined to operate within the particular parameters. So there are 3 categories identified in these constraints, and these are constraints imposed by the organism or the person, the environment, and the task itself. And these three can also work together to apply new types of restriction. So first is I will tackle the task. So the task constraints, the task related restriction on human movement such as task goal, the equipment employed, and the legislated rules and procedure. So in the task, so for example is goaling the soccer ball to opponent's goal post. So, ang task mo doon is dapat masipa mo siya or mapapasok mo yung bola doon sa opponent's goal post, in which yun yung task mo para you have point or para manalo yung team mo. So, also in this task, you have a goal, targeted goal, and also the how you paano mo madala o paano mo magamit ng mabuti yung equipment mo, and also the legislated rules and procedure kung paano mo siya masusunod, in which is in the game is kailangan talaga ng rules and procedure para malaro mo yung isang skills in a proper way. So yun yung task mo in a soccer play. Kailangan mong mag-goal yung bola mo sa goal post ng opponent. So yun yung task mo. So as we move on in the organism or as we proceed to the organismic or the what we call this the individual constraints is dito na yun, it includes structural characteristics such as the gravity, the height, the weight, and the body shape, as well as a functional characteristic such as intelligence, motivation, and the psychological states. So for example, playing a soccer, so what it will pupunta tayo doon sa kunyari you are playing a soccer, then medyo may malaman naman ko or what we call mataba, then in this skills is as a individual is dito mo ma-assess and what we call this ma-manage yung weight mo on paano mo madala yung equipment na ginagamit mo, which is yung bola, paano mo siya masisipa, paano mo siya dadalhin as you played soccer. So also it is managing or increasing our flexibility, the skills that we use, or how can the skill function to do to do these skills using an equipment which is the ball. So how can you manage your weight, your body shape na in these skills is ma-manage mo talaga yung kahit ano yung characteristic mo, as well as ang yung pagkatao mo is alam mo talaga kung paano i-manage yung galaw mo and the movement that you acted. So kung mataba ka, then you are playing soccer, you know how to manage the ball and your body so that the cooperation or the combined of your body is nang iisahan lang, then maganda yung flow. So next is the environmental constraints, in which is involves the environment, which also in playing soccer your opponent consider as an environmental constraints, and this is the distraction, the happenings, and the situation occur in our environment can affect our skills. So for example in soccer, so we have an opponent, di ba yung goal natin doon sa task is mag-goal natin yung bola sa goal post ng ating opponent. But the distraction there is your opponent will back you, either masipak sa paa, matutumbak ka, then either pag maagaw nila ang bola, matatapakan nila yung kamay mo, matatamaan yung mga balikat mo, yung sa part ng katawan mo, and that is one of the environmental constraints that make your skill makaka-affect sa skills mo, and either it is a distractions that happens na natumbak ka kasi natamaan ka or sinadya talaga ng kalaban mo na i-block ka, so that nangyari yun sa'yo. So yun ang environmental constraint na makukuha natin in a skills na nilalaro natin. So that's all.